At first, it looked like just another busy morning at the train station. People rushing, announcements echoing, children laughing. In the middle of the crowd, a police dog suddenly froze. His ears twitched, his eyes locked onto a little girl holding her mother's hand. To everyone else, she looked ordinary. But to Rex, something was wrong. Her shaking fingers tapped 5 times against her mother's back, again and again. No one noticed the silent pattern except him. Within seconds, Rex broke away, pulling his handler toward the child. His handler tried to hold him back. "What is it, boy?" he asked, confused, but Rex refused to move. What they found next would shock the entire station. Stay till the end, because what Rex discovers will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning rush at the Central Station was in full motion. Footsteps echoed across the marble floors, the hum of voices blending into a steady rhythmic noise. Officer Mark adjusted his uniform cap as he walked beside his canine partner, Rex, a strong, disciplined German shepherd with sharp amber eyes that missed nothing. The pair had worked together for over 5 years, their bond built through countless patrols and tense moments that tested both courage and instinct. It was supposed to be another routine shift. Nothing unusual, just the usual crowd of travelers, the sound of rolling suitcases and announcements bouncing off high ceilings. But Mark knew better than to let his guard down. Experience had taught him that danger rarely announced itself. It could be hidden in an unclaimed bag, a nervous face, or even an innocent gesture. And Rex could sense what humans couldn't. They moved through the terminal, scanning faces, watching patterns. Rex walked with quiet precision, his vest labeled police shining under the bright lights. Passengers smiled as they passed, some even taking photos. Mark gave a polite nod, though his eyes kept sweeping the area, a constant dance between calmness and alertness. He paused briefly near the main atrium, letting Rex sniff along a row of benches. The dog's tail swayed lazily, his nose working silently. Everything seemed normal. A businessman rushed past with a coffee, a mother soothed her crying baby, and a group of tourists gathered near the ticket counter, laughing. "Another peaceful day, huh, buddy?" Mark murmured. Rex's ears flicked at the sound, but his gaze stayed steady on the moving crowd. Moments later, the loudspeaker crackled. "Attention passengers, train 407 departing in 15 minutes. People began to move faster now, the crowd thickening like a tide. Mark straightened, tightening his grip on Rex's leash. To anyone watching, they looked like just another officer and his dog, a reassuring sight of safety. But beneath that calm, Mark's instincts were tuned to every flicker of movement. And Rex, ever watchful, scanned the ocean of people ahead with silent focus. Neither of them knew that before the shift ended, one small signal from a frightened child would change everything. The flow of travelers thickened as the minutes ticked by. The terminal buzzed with energy, voices overlapping, announcements echoing, footsteps blending into a restless rhythm. Mark moved carefully through the crowd, scanning the faces ahead while Rex walked at his side, every step purposeful. The German shepherd's head turned slightly as he watched people passing, a routine check for anything unusual. Near the security checkpoint, Mark's gaze caught a woman in a bright blue coat, walking hand in hand with 3 children. She seemed calm, almost too calm, moving quickly, as if eager to disappear into the crowd. Her youngest, a little girl with light brown hair, walked slightly behind, her small hand holding her mother's fingers. Something about her movement drew Mark's attention. The woman looked like any ordinary traveler, tired, focused, carrying a large black handbag on her shoulder. But the little girl, there was something in her eyes. They were wide, glassy, almost searching. She looked around nervously, glancing back every few steps. Her lips moved slightly, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Rex's ears twitched. The dog slowed down, his posture shifting from relaxed to alert. Mark noticed immediately. Rex never changed behavior without a reason. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. The dog didn't bark. Instead, He stared straight ahead at the woman and her children. Mark followed his gaze and saw the little girl again. She had fallen a step behind her family now, her small hands slipping slightly from her mother's grasp before being pulled back. Her movements were hesitant, her steps uneven, not the carefree rhythm of a child traveling with her family. Mark's instincts nudged him. He had seen fear before, the kind that hides behind silence. The girl's body language wasn't just tiredness. It was restrained. He brushed off the thought for the moment. Maybe she was shy or scared of crowds. But Rex didn't take his eyes off them. His focus was unwavering, his breathing measured, tail stiff. Mark breathed out slowly, scanning the busy terminal once more. He didn't know it yet, but in the middle of that ordinary morning rush, a silent cry for help was about to unfold, one that only Rex could hear. The crowd surged as another train announcement echoed through the terminal. People hurried past, dragging suitcases and holding coffee cups, unaware of the small shift happening at ground level. Rex had stopped walking. His body stiffened, ears upright, nostrils flaring as he took in the air around him. The leash went tight. Mark looked down immediately. "What is it, boy?" he muttered, scanning the area ahead. But Rex didn't move. His amber eyes were locked onto a single direction, toward the woman in the blue coat and her 3 children weaving through the crowd. It wasn't the usual sign of danger. There was no explosive scent, no trace of drugs. This was different, sharper, based on instinct. Rex's growl was low, almost a whisper of warning. Mark felt the vibration through the leash before he even heard it. "Easy," he said quietly, his eyes narrowing. He had learned long ago never to ignore Rex's instincts. The dog's behavior was precise, never random. If Rex stopped, it meant something was wrong. Ahead, the little girl turned her head for a quick second. Their eyes met, a brief, almost pleading glance. Then she quickly looked away. The woman tightened her grip on the child's hand, pulling her closer as if afraid of losing her. Mark caught the motion, his pulse quickening. Rex's tail went rigid, and he took one step forward. His breathing deepened, nostrils flaring again. The faint sound of his claws clicking against the polished floor broke through the noise. Mark followed his gaze, watching the family approach the ticket gates. Something about the woman's movements seemed forced. Her smile to the ticket clerk was too deliberate, her posture unnaturally stiff. The girl stumbled slightly, almost falling, but the woman didn't stop to comfort her. She just pulled harder. That single action made Rex bark once, sharp, commanding, enough to make several people turn their heads. "Rex, quiet," Mark ordered, trying to stay calm, but his partner didn't listen. The German shepherd stood his ground, muscles tense, eyes unwavering. People around them paused, murmuring softly. Mark's gut tightened. Whatever Rex had picked up, it wasn't a false alarm. The dog's instincts were screaming. But about what? Mark tightened his grip on the leash, scanning the faces ahead. He didn't know it yet, but Rex had already sensed the one thing no human had noticed, the silent heartbeat of danger pulsing just beneath the surface. The station was alive with movement, a constant blur of people, voices, and noise. But to Rex, everything else faded away. His focus had narrowed to one thing, the little girl. Every fiber of his body was alert. Mark felt it through the leash, a tense vibration like a heartbeat made of instinct. The woman in the blue coat guided her children toward the waiting area. Her pace was quick, her grip tight. The smallest girl lagged behind again, her small fingers brushing her mother's back. It was a small gesture, barely noticeable in the crowd, but Rex caught it instantly. 5 quick taps, a pause, then 5 more. Mark almost missed it, but Rex didn't. The German shepherd stiffened, tail rising as he let out a low, deliberate growl. It wasn't aggression, it was communication. His training taught him to react not only to smells, but to body language, to patterns. Something about that movement wasn't random. Mark's eyebrows came together. "What are you seeing, buddy?" he whispered. Rex's eyes never left the girl. His head tilted slightly, as if studying her every motion. The child looked terrified, her lips pressed tight, her eyes glistening. She turned her face away quickly, pretending to adjust her sweater, but her body shook. Then it happened again. 5 soft taps of her hand against the woman's back. This time, Mark saw it too, subtle, secretive, but intentional. The officer's stomach tightened. He had seen coded gestures before, signals used by victims trying to alert help without speaking. Could that be what this was? Rex growled again, louder this time, drawing attention from nearby passengers. The woman flinched, spinning around to look at them. Her face was pale, but her smile was forced. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, her tone smooth but shaky around the edges. Mark studied her carefully. "Just a routine patrol," he replied, his eyes moving between her and the trembling child. Rex took another step forward, his body tense, his instincts pulling hard against the leash. The atmosphere thickened, a quiet battle between calm and chaos. The girl looked up, her eyes locking on Rex's for one quick second. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a message only he could understand. Mark's pulse quickened. This wasn't coincidence anymore. Something was very, very wrong, and Rex was ready to prove it. The air inside the terminal felt suddenly heavier, like the hum of conversation had dulled into an uneasy quiet. Mark could sense it, a shift in energy that only trained officers notice. And Rex was at the center of it. His leash went tight again, muscles flexing under his golden black fur. His growl rumbled low and deep, vibrating through the air like a warning bell before a storm. Mark tightened his grip. "Rex, heel," he commanded softly, but Rex didn't move. His paws were planted firmly on the polished floor, eyes locked on the woman in the blue coat. His ears flattened, his nostrils flared, and his body leaned forward with fierce determination. Every command that normally guided him, sit, stay, leave it, disappeared in his silence. This wasn't disobedience. It was instinct taking control. The woman froze, startled by the growl. Her smile faded. "Why is your dog staring at us?" she asked quickly, trying to sound calm. "We haven't done anything wrong." Mark's voice remained even. "Ma'am, he's a trained canine. He doesn't react without reason." Around them, travelers slowed their pace, drawn by curiosity. Phones lifted quietly, recording the scene. Children pointed. Whispers spread through the crowd like a wave. Mark could feel dozens of eyes watching, waiting for his next move. But his focus was on the dog and on the fear he'd glimpsed in the little girl's eyes. "Rex," he murmured again, lowering his voice. "Talk to me, buddy. What do you see?" Rex's gaze shifted from the woman's face to the girl's trembling hands. Then, with a sudden push, he pulled forward. Mark barely caught the leash in time. The force nearly pulled him off balance. The woman snapped, stepping back sharply, holding her children. "Control your dog." Mark raised his free hand, signaling for calm. "Everyone, please stay back," he called to the nearby crowd. His other hand hovered near his belt out of pure habit, not threat. Rex barked once loud, commanding, echoing off the terminal walls. The girl flinched, covering her ears. But what caught Mark's attention wasn't the bark. It was her reaction. She didn't look frightened of the dog. She looked relieved. Her lips moved, just 2 words mouthed silently toward him. "Help us." Mark's breath caught in his chest. Rex let out another sharp bark, pulling again, his eyes blazing with purpose. He wasn't just reacting. He was responding to a cry only he could hear. Mark's training screamed to keep control, but his instincts told him otherwise. Something deeper was happening here, something no manual had prepared him for. He took a steady breath, looked at Rex, and whispered, "All right, partner, lead the way." And with that, the dog surged forward into the truth that was about to unravel everything. The noise in the terminal shifted from background chatter to uneasy murmurs. Dozens of curious eyes followed the standoff between the police dog and the woman in the blue coat. Mark's pulse quickened, but his expression stayed calm, the calm of someone who'd stood between panic and order too many times to count. "Ma'am," he said steadily, "please stay right where you are." The woman stiffened, her hand tightening around the little girl's arm. "I don't understand," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Why is your dog doing this?" Rex stood his ground, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His tail was rigid, his stance forward, his focus razor-sharp. Mark had seen Rex face armed suspects and volatile crowds, but never this level of alert without clear reason. The girl tried to speak, but the woman snapped quiet. It was sharp, almost automatic, and her voice cracked on the word. That single moment made Mark's heart beat harder. No mother talks to her child like that when she's afraid. Not unless fear is hiding something deeper. Mark took a slow step forward. I'm going to have to ask you to open your bag. Her eyes darted around. What? Why? You have no reason. It's standard procedure. He interrupted gently, his voice carrying authority beneath restraint. My partner's reacting to something. We just want to clear it up. The crowd grew quieter, sensing something unfolding beyond ordinary. Rex's ears twitched. His body coiled tighter. The woman hesitated, holding the bag closer. Mark noticed her hands, pale, trembling, the knuckles white from pressure. Ma'am, he said again, softer now. Please, let's make this easy. For a second, her mask cracked. The calm smile vanished, replaced by something raw, panic. She adjusted her coat nervously, her eyes looking toward the exit. Then she made her move. In a single quick motion, she turned, pulling the little girl behind her as she tried to push through the crowd. Gasps erupted. Mark reacted instantly. Rex, he shouted. The German shepherd lunged forward, not to attack, but to block. He moved like lightning, cutting off her path with precision only training could perfect. His bark thundered through the terminal, stopping the woman cold. Mark rushed forward, getting just close enough to take control. Don't move. His voice echoed across the hall. The woman froze, eyes wide with realization. She wasn't getting away. Rex stood inches from her, growling low, his body a wall of loyalty and justice. Mark's heart pounded as he looked from the trembling child to the woman holding her arm. He didn't know what was going on yet, but deep down he knew one thing for certain. Rex wasn't wrong. Something here was dangerously off, and the truth was about to come out. For a long moment, no one moved. The echo of Rex's bark still hung in the air, mixing with the low hum of the crowd that now kept a safe distance. The woman's breathing was sharp and shallow, her grip on the little girl tight. Mark's eyes swept over the scene. The trembling child, the tightening leash, the crowd frozen between fear and curiosity. Ma'am, Mark said firmly, let go of her hand. The woman didn't move. Her expression flickered, first anger, then desperation. But before she could respond, Rex stepped forward, his growl deepening, protective yet focused. The sound wasn't just warning. It was direction, an instinct telling Mark to look closer. The little girl turned her face slightly, just enough to meet his eyes. That brief connection hit him harder than he expected. Her eyes weren't just scared. They were pleading, wide, watery, full of silent words she couldn't speak. It was the look of someone trapped between fear and hope. Mark knelt slightly, softening his tone. Hey, you okay, sweetheart? The girl's lips parted, but no sound came out. She shot a quick look toward the woman beside her, then back to Mark. Her small shoulders trembled, and her grip around the stuffed toy she carried tightened until her knuckles turned white. Rex's ears tilted forward. He sat now, perfectly still, but his gaze never left the child. His tail was stiff, his breathing shallow. Every fiber of him reading her body language, every tiny expression telling him what humans couldn't hear. The woman shifted uneasily. She's just scared, she said quickly. You're frightening her. Mark stood slowly, his tone steady but firm. Then why isn't she looking at me like she's scared of me? The woman's mouth opened, but no words came out. The crowd murmured quietly, sensing the tension. Mark's instincts screamed louder with each passing second. The girl's expression said everything. The way her eyes looked toward the exit. The way she pressed her lips together as if holding back tears. She was trying to say something. Rex let out a low whine, a sound of empathy more than alert. Mark recognized it instantly. That's when he understood. The girl wasn't scared of the officer or the dog. She was scared for herself. And somewhere beneath that fear, hidden behind her trembling eyes, was a silent plea only one partner could truly hear. Rex. The silence between them was almost unbearable. The hum of the crowd faded into a distant blur as the moment thickened with unease. Mark could feel the pulse of tension in the air, in Rex's leash, even in the little girl's trembling hands. The woman broke first. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice trembling with forced anger. "You're scaring my children. We're just trying to catch our train." Mark didn't blink. "Ma'am, please calm down. I just need to understand why my canine partner is reacting like this." Rex stood firmly beside him, gaze locked onto the woman's bag. His fur bristled slightly, not out of aggression, but heightened awareness. His tail was stiff, his breathing controlled, and his ears flicked with sharp precision. The little girl stepped slightly behind her mother, her eyes moving toward Rex again. This time, Mark saw it, the faintest shake of her head, a subtle movement that almost said, "Don't let her leave." "Ma'am," Mark repeated, "can you please hand me your bag for inspection?" The woman's lips pressed into a thin line. "No," she said quickly. "You have no right." Before she could finish, Rex let out a sudden deep bark, sharp, commanding, and echoing across the hall. The sound startled everyone nearby. A baby cried. Someone gasped. The woman's hand jerked, holding the strap of her bag tighter. Mark stepped forward. "Rex, easy," he murmured, though he knew the dog wasn't acting without reason. His gut twisted. This wasn't a routine alert. Something here was off balance, wrong in a way that couldn't be explained by training alone. "Please," the woman said again, this time her voice cracking. "We're late. My children need rest." Her hand shook slightly as she spoke, betraying the calm her words tried to project. "Then you won't mind a quick check," Mark said, his tone firm but calm. "It'll only take a minute." The little girl's breathing quickened. She held her toy tighter, eyes glistening. Rex whined softly, his gaze shifting from her to the bag. Then he barked again, louder, sharper, demanding attention. Mark's hand moved toward the bag zipper. The woman stepped back, shaking her head. "No, please don't." That single protest was all the confirmation Mark needed. He signaled to another officer nearby. "Security, I need assistance," he called out, keeping his eyes on the woman. The crowd murmured louder now. Phones raised, whispers buzzing. Rex took one step closer, his growl steady, his body forming a protective barrier between Mark and the family. The woman's act began to crumble. Her lips trembled. Sweat glistened on her forehead. And behind her, the little girl's expression shifted from fear to quiet relief. Mark's instinct screamed the truth. Whatever this woman was hiding, the child had been living inside that fear all along. And Rex was seconds away from exposing it. Mark's heart pounded as he stepped closer. The air felt thick with anticipation, the crowd holding its breath. Every eye in the terminal was on him, on Rex, and on the trembling woman holding her bag like a shield. "Ma'am," Mark said quietly, "put it down." She didn't move. Her knuckles whitened around the strap. "Please," she whispered, her voice fragile now. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "Then show me," Mark replied, his tone calm but unyielding. Rex's growl deepened, low, deep, and full of warning. The dog's instincts were screaming now, every muscle tight, with purpose. His gaze shifted between the woman's bag and the little girl standing behind her. The child's lips trembled as she held her toy tighter, eyes moving nervously between the two adults. Finally, the woman's resistance cracked. Her hands trembled as she slowly lowered the bag onto the inspection table. "There's nothing illegal," she murmured. "Please, we just want to go." Mark gave a short nod to one of the assisting officers, who began unzipping the bag. The sound of the zipper cutting through the silence felt deafening. Rex's body tensed. His nose hovered close, sniffing every motion. Inside, at first glance, were ordinary things: clothes, snacks, a folded blanket. But tucked between the layers, Mark saw something odd, a small metallic object wrapped in a child's sweater. He frowned and carefully pulled it out. It wasn't a weapon. It was a phone, a cheap prepaid model, its back taped shut. He handed it to the other officer, who inspected it quickly. "No SIM card," he muttered. Rex barked once, sharply. His attention snapped to the bottom part of the bag. Mark hesitated, then reached deeper. His hand brushed against something stiff. Papers. He pulled them out, a set of travel documents, multiple passports, and several photo IDs, all with different names but one face, the woman's. Mark's jaw tightened. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "would you like to explain this?" The woman's face lost all color. "It's not what you think. Please." Rex growled again, louder this time. Mark's eyes dropped to a small, unmarked envelope that had slipped free from the pile. He opened it carefully. Inside were photographs, grainy shots of children taken from distances like surveillance images. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The woman reached out suddenly, panic flashing in her eyes. "Give those back," she cried, lunging forward. Mark stepped back instantly, hand raised to stop her. "Enough," he said firmly. "Stay where you are." The girl whimpered softly, her voice cracking as she whispered. "She said we were going on vacation." Mark's stomach turned cold. He exchanged a serious look with the officer beside him. Rex stood perfectly still now, silent, watching, waiting, because both he and Mark knew the truth. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of something far darker. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. The photographs lay scattered across the table, faces of children, some smiling, some terrified. Each picture whispering a story no one wanted to imagine. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, turning into a low wave of disbelief. Mark's focus, however, stayed fixed on the little girl. She stood motionless beside the woman, her wide eyes glistening with tears she was trying hard not to let fall. Her tiny hands trembled around her stuffed toy, holding it as if it were the only safe thing left in the world. "Ma'am," Mark said firmly, "I need you to step aside." The woman shook her head, panic flashing in her eyes. "You don't understand. They'll come for us if you—" Rex barked once, silencing her. His deep growl rolled like thunder through the terminal. The sound wasn't aggression. It was protection. Mark crouched down slightly, his tone softening as he looked at the girl. "Hey, you're safe, okay? Nobody's going to hurt you. I promise." The girl didn't respond at first. She just stared at him, frozen between fear and trust. Then slowly, she shook her head. "Sweetheart," he continued gently, "what's your name?" The woman tried to interrupt. "She doesn't need to talk to you." But before she could move, Rex stepped in front of the child, his body forming a silent barrier. His steady, calm posture said everything. The dog knew who needed protecting. The girl hesitated, her gaze shifting from the woman to Rex. The dog's eyes softened, intelligent, patient, unwavering. That was all the reassurance she needed. "My name's Lily," she whispered finally, her voice so faint that Mark had to lean closer to hear. "Hi, Lily," he said softly. "Can you tell me who this woman is to you?" The girl swallowed hard, her small fingers twisting in the fur of her toy. Her voice trembled. "She said she was taking us to meet our dad." Mark frowned. "Us?" Lily nodded, pointing weakly toward the photos on the table. "That's them, the other kids. She said we'd all be together again, but—" Her voice broke, but they never came back. A chill swept through the room. Even a murmuring crowd fell silent. The woman's act collapsed completely. "You don't understand," she cried, stepping forward. "I was forced." "They—" Mark raised a hand sharply. "Enough." Rex growled, his stance protective around Lily, as two officers moved in to secure the woman. Mark looked back at the little girl, tears running down her cheeks. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "You're safe now." Lily looked at Rex, the dog who had understood her before anyone else, and whispered, "He heard me when no one else could." Mark's throat tightened because deep down he knew. Rex hadn't just sensed danger. He had heard a silent call for help and answered it. The terminal was now sealed off. Yellow security tape cut across the hall, and uniformed officers stood guard near every exit. The hum of travel had been replaced by whispers and flashing cameras. What had started as a routine patrol had become a full-scale investigation. Mark stood near the corner of the security office, watching through the glass as two detectives questioned the woman in the blue coat. Her calm had completely shattered. She sat slumped in the chair, eyes hollow, hands trembling. Rex lay quietly at Mark's side, still alert, his eyes tracking her every movement through the window. A senior investigator stepped in, holding a folder thick with newly pulled records. His expression was serious. "Her name isn't Emily Price," he said flatly. The IDs in her bag are all fake. We cross-check her prints. Real name's Dana Voss. She's on an active watch list in 3 states. Mark frowned. For what? The man's voice dropped. Child trafficking, recruitment, and transport. A heavy silence filled the room. Mark's stomach turned as the weight of it sank in. He looked at Rex. The dog had sensed it all along before anyone else could. According to records, the investigator continued. She's connected to a network that moves children across state lines using false family identities. Each time, she pretends to be the guardian. The pattern fits perfectly. The phone in her bag, likely used for coded communication, one way only. Mark breathed out slowly, anger and disbelief mixing inside him. So Lily, she wasn't her daughter? Not even close, the man replied. The girl was reported missing 3 weeks ago. Her real family's been searching nonstop. Through the glass, Dana's voice suddenly rose, broken, frantic. I didn't want to do it, she cried. They made me. If I refused, they said they'd. Her voice dissolved into sobs. Mark didn't feel pity, only a deep, steady ache in his chest. He looked down at Rex, who was still lying at attention, calm and steady. You knew, he whispered, brushing his hand over the dog's head. You knew she wasn't safe. Rex blinked slowly, his eyes steady and loyal, certain, unshaken. The detective closed the folder. You and that dog just saved more lives than you realize, he said quietly. If she'd left this station, we might never have seen any of those kids again. Mark nodded silently, eyes on Rex. The German shepherd's tail moved once, a slow, solemn wag. He didn't need words. He'd done what he was born to do. He had protected the innocent. Night fell over the city, painting the skyline in shades of blue and steel. The police station buzzed with urgency. Phones ringing, radios crackling, boots echoing against concrete floors. The atmosphere was electric, charged with determination and fear. Every officer knew what was at stake. Mark stood beside a large digital map spread across the operations board. Red pins marked locations connected to Dana Voss's movements over the past few weeks. Train stations, motels, abandoned warehouses. At the center of it all, a blinking light traced the GPS signal pulled from the phone found in her bag. It was moving. Another contact point, the lead investigator muttered. They're shifting the rest of the kids tonight. Mark clenched his fists. Then we don't have time to wait. Rex sat beside him, alert, eyes focused on the flashing dots. His ears twitched at every sound, the soft buzz of the radios, the tension in the room, the emotion coming from his handler. He could feel Mark's heartbeat in the air, steady, ready. Bring the K-9 unit, the commander ordered. We move in 5. Minutes later, the convoy rolled out. Sirens cut through the night, red and blue lights bouncing off glass towers. Inside the lead vehicle, Mark's hand rested on Rex's vest, the word police shining faintly in the dashboard light. You ready, buddy? He whispered. Rex let out a quiet whine, not fear but focus. His eyes glowed with purpose. They arrived in an old industrial district on the outskirts of town. Rows of empty warehouses swallowed by darkness. The signal had stopped there. The officers spread out silently, weapons drawn, flashlights slicing through the night. Mark crouched beside Rex, unclipping the leash. Find them, he murmured. Rex darted forward, nose low, tail stiff, moving like a shadow with purpose. He weaved through debris and broken fences, sniffing the air, following an invisible trail that no human could sense. Suddenly, he stopped. His body froze, ears up. A low growl rumbled from his throat. Mark caught up quickly, flashlight cutting across a locked metal door. Behind it, faint noises. A muffled sound. A child's voice. Here! Mark shouted. Officers rushed over. One of them used a crowbar to pry the door open. The hinges screamed as the metal gave way. Inside, dim light revealed the impossible. 5 children huddled together, eyes wide, clothes dirty, faces pale with exhaustion. The room fell silent for a heartbeat. Then one child whimpered. Are you the police? Mark swallowed hard, nodding. You're safe now. Rex approached slowly, tail lowered in calm assurance. The children's fear melted into awe. One of them reached out, touching his fur with trembling fingers. "He found us," the boy whispered. Mark smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. "Yeah," he said quietly. "He always does." The radio crackled behind them. All units, children secured. And for the first time that night, the entire team breathed out. They had beaten the clock. The warehouse echoed with sirens, footsteps, and shouts as officers moved quickly to secure the area. The rescued children were being led to safety under blankets and soft reassurances. But in the middle of the relief, Mark noticed something, a sound that didn't belong. A car engine. He turned sharply toward the back entrance, just in time to see headlights flare to life in the dark. A black SUV roared down the narrow service road, tires screeching. "They're getting away," an officer shouted. Before Mark could answer, Rex lunged forward, barking fiercely, a warning and a promise. Mark's pulse surged. "Go, Rex," he yelled, releasing the leash. The German Shepherd exploded into motion, paws pounding against the wet pavement. The night air tore past him as he ran, muscles coiling and releasing with every stride. Ahead, the SUV swerved, its tail lights flickering through the fog. Unit 3, suspect vehicle heading east. Mark shouted into his radio as he sprinted after his partner. The rhythm of his boots and Rex's paws blending into one relentless chase. The driver tried to lose them, spinning around a corner too fast, clipping a trash bin that clattered across the alley. Rex didn't flinch. He leaped over the debris, closing the distance with terrifying precision. Inside the vehicle, the man behind the wheel cursed and slammed the accelerator harder. But Rex was faster, a blur of focus and fury. "Come on, boy, just a little closer," Mark whispered under his breath, running full speed, adrenaline burning through exhaustion. Then, with a final burst of power, Rex lunged. His jaws caught the edge of the driver's sleeve through the open window. The man shouted, jerking the wheel. The SUV skidded violently, spinning out before crashing against a chain-link fence. The engine sputtered, steam hissing from the hood. Mark reached them seconds later, gun drawn, shouting, "Police! Don't move!" The driver stumbled out, holding his arm. Rex stood between them, growling, controlled, protective, unrelenting. Mark quickly restrained the suspect as backup units swarmed the scene. As the handcuffs clicked shut, the man spat out, "You think you've stopped it? You don't even know who you're dealing with." Mark glared, tightening his grip. "Maybe not," he said coldly, "but we know you won't hurt another child." The suspect sneered, but his defiance faded when Rex stepped forward, eyes locked on him, the living form of justice in fur and muscle. Moments later, officers dragged the man away. The flashing lights lit up Rex's face, calm, steady, victorious. Mark knelt beside him, breath heavy but proud. "You did it again, partner," he whispered. Rex panted softly, his tail giving a slow wag. In that dark alley, surrounded by chaos, one truth shone clear. It wasn't just training that made Rex remarkable. It was heart. And tonight, that heart had brought the light back into 6 children's lives. The storm that had raged through the night had finally broken. By dawn, the city was quiet again, soft lights spilling across the horizon, touching everything with the pale warmth of morning. The warehouse district was sealed off, marked with yellow tape and flashing lights. But inside the command area, something extraordinary was happening. The rescued children sat wrapped in blankets, sipping warm cocoa handed out by volunteers. Paramedics moved gently among them, checking vitals and whispering comfort. Despite the exhaustion in their small faces, there was a glimmer of something new, safety. Mark stood a few steps away, watching as Lily, the little girl who had started it all, spoke softly to his social worker. Every now and then, she looked toward him and Rex. Her eyes were tired, but they no longer carried the same fear. Rex lay beside Mark, his fur still damp from the rain, his head resting between his paws. He looked calm now, though his eyes followed Lily wherever she went. A familiar voice broke through the morning air. "Officer Mark." He turned. A man and woman rushed forward, escorted by detectives, Lily's real parents. Their faces were pale with disbelief until the moment Lily saw them. "Mom! Dad!" she cried, running forward. The reunion was instant, arms wrapped tight, tears streaming, the kind of hug that no words could ever capture. The officers nearby turned away quietly, some smiling, others fighting the lump in their throats. Mark breathed out deeply, his chest tightening with emotion. He looked down at Rex, who lifted his head slightly, ears perked. "You see that?" Mark murmured. "You did that." The little girl broke from her parents and ran toward them. She knelt beside Rex, throwing her arms around his neck. The German shepherd stayed still, only his tail thumping lightly against the ground. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice muffled in his fur. "You're my hero." Mark blinked back the burn in his eyes. He reached out, resting a hand on Rex's shoulder. "He hears that, kiddo," he said softly. "He always does." Nearby, one of the investigators approached, holding a thick folder. "The network's broken," he said quietly. "Your dog's nose and your instincts. They saved more lives than we can count." Mark smiled faintly, his gaze on Rex. "We just followed the truth," he replied. Rex looked up at him, eyes calm, loyal, and proud. For the first time that long night, Mark realized something simple. Sometimes heroes don't need badges or words. Sometimes they just need to listen. The morning sun had risen fully now, cutting through the mist and painting the city in soft gold. The chaos of the night was over. What remained was quiet, the kind of silence that follows after something deeply human has happened. Mark sat on the station's front steps, his uniform still damp, his body exhausted, but his heart full. Beside him, Rex sat tall and alert, his gaze sweeping the parking lot where police cars idled and officers shared quiet words over steaming cups of coffee. It was all over. The suspects were in custody. The children were safe. And somewhere inside the station, Lily was laughing, her first real laugh in weeks. Mark smiled faintly at the sound. He looked down at his partner. "You know," he said softly, "if I hadn't trusted you back there, I might have told you to heal. Might have walked away." Rex turned his head slightly, amber eyes meeting his handlers. He didn't wag his tail or bark. He just stared, calm and knowing, the way only Rex could. Mark chuckled quietly. "Guess that's why you're the real detective, huh?" The German shepherd pressed his nose lightly against Mark's arm, a simple gesture that said more than words ever could. Moments later, a car door opened. Lily stepped out with her parents. She hesitated for a second, then ran toward them, her pink jacket catching the sunlight. In her hand, she held something small, Rex's old K9 badge tag, which Mark had given her before they left. She knelt beside Rex again, smiling through happy tears. "I'm going to keep this," she said, "so I never forget you." Rex blinked slowly, his ears twitching as if he understood. Mark's throat tightened. He placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. "You don't have to forget," he said gently. "He's part of your story now, and you're part of his." The girl hugged Rex one last time before standing and running back to her parents. Mark watched them drive away until the car disappeared around the corner. The station yard was quiet again. Only the breeze moved, rustling the flag above them. Mark looked at Rex, voice barely above a whisper. "You don't just protect lives, buddy. You change them." Rex's ears flicked, his eyes softening as he leaned closer, resting his head against Mark's leg. And as the camera pulled back, capturing the two partners framed in the soft light of morning, the narrator's voice echoed. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes or carry weapons. Sometimes they walk on four paws and listen to the cries no one else can hear. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every view helps us tell another tale of courage, loyalty, and the incredible bond between humans and their dogs.